Chapter 1, Death Sentence. They dragged me by the neck like a dog. I don't remember why. Maybe I'd already gone mad. Maybe it was the way the crowd looked at me, like they'd forgotten I was a man, not a monster. Their eyes devoured my suffering with glee, as if seeing Elias Thorne, traitor to the Empire, bound and bloodied, somehow made their lives less hollow. The stone of the execution square burned beneath my bare feet. Or maybe that was just my skin, raw, flayed, filthy. It no longer mattered. My body had become something distant, a tool, a weapon, a failure. They made me kneel. The guards stood like statues, pretending not to notice the spit on my face or the fresh blood still dripping from the lashes on my back. I tilted my head upward, squinting at the platform above me, and there he was, Lucian, the Emperor, gold-threaded black robes, eyes like storm glass, cold and reflective, not really seeing. I'd spent 7 years trying to tear down his empire, and now, he looked at me like I was nothing more than an itch he'd finally scratched. "Do you have any final words, rebel?" a voice asked. I smiled with cracked lips. "You'll rot from the inside, Lucian, and you'll still hear my voice when it happens," I whispered, not caring if they heard. Lucian gave no response, just the slightest twitch at the corner of his mouth. Pity? Amusement? I hated how much I wanted it to be guilt. The blade was raised. The sky turned white. And then, pain. But not the kind I knew. Not sharp and punishing. No chains. No collar. No blood. Softness. Warmth. The scent of lavender and silk. My eyes snapped open. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't the execution square. This wasn't... "Silas?" a soft voice whispered. I turned my head and saw a girl, maybe 15, with wide brown eyes and a physician's satchel clutched to her chest. She looked afraid. "What did you call me?" I rasped. My throat burned, but not from screaming. Felt clean. "Your Grace, you fainted during the Emperor's morning ritual. You've been unconscious for hours. Please don't move too fast. His Majesty will be..." she said, quickly bowing. "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped, sitting up, and froze. My hands were wrong. Smooth, pale, unscarred. I yanked the covers off. The body beneath them was thin, almost delicate. Golden bracelets slid down my arms. I wore silk. My chest was bare, hairless, soft. No marks. No burn. No whip scars. No. I stumbled to the mirror across the room. The face staring back was beautiful. And not mine. A boy's face, early 20s maybe. Full lips. Long lashes. Auburn curls tied with ribbon. Eyes like crushed violets. There was a sensuality to it. Fragile yet practiced. A face that had been loved. Owned. I gripped the vanity until my knuckles went white. "What is this?" I whispered. Later, when the girl left and I could breathe without screaming, I found the journals. Hidden beneath the cushion of the window seat. Silas Verrin. The name was written in looping gold ink on the inner cover. Private entries. Short, desperate phrases. "He only touches me when I'm quiet. If I sing, he smiles. If I cry, he drinks. I tried the lake again today. Kasia says I need new medicine." I stopped reading. My fingers trembled. Lucian. The Emperor. He hadn't just known this boy. He'd kept him. A favorite. Pet. And now I was him. The door opened. I turned, instantly alert. Lucian entered the room with a slow, quiet stride. No crown. No guards. Just him. And even now, after all he'd done to me, my chest clenched. He looked at me like I was the only real thing in the world. "There you are. You gave me a fright, Silas," he murmured, voice low, dangerous, familiar. I said nothing. Could say nothing. Could only watch as the man who had ordered my death reached out with practiced tenderness and brushed a curl from my forehead. "Don't scare me like that again. I don't like feeling powerless," he said. The irony made me dizzy. I forced a small smile. Sweet. Shy. Perfect. Inside, I screamed. Chapter 2. The Tyrant's Touch. The bed still smelled like him. Or maybe it was me now, Silas. My body. My skin. My curse. I hadn't slept. I hadn't even blinked, I think. Just lay there in the sprawling canopy bed beneath sheets softer than clouds and felt the slow thud of my borrowed heartbeat. Every breath I took felt stolen, wrong, fragile. I wanted to claw out of this skin, or scream, or go back to the guillotine. But when morning came, I painted my face. Soft, blank, obedient, like Silas. Lucian entered without knocking. Of course he did. He always walked in like he owned the world, and he did. Every stone in the palace, every heartbeat in the court, every inch of me. He wore black again. Always black. Silk over leather, gold at his throat. But no crown. Never a crown in here. That was for the court. This room? This was where he came to feel something. Up already? I thought you'd still be asleep. You looked so peaceful when I left, he said as he shut the door behind him. His voice made my stomach twist. Not with fear. Not yet. Not anymore. Now it was hate wearing the mask of stillness. I smiled just the right amount. I didn't want to waste the morning. Lucian stepped closer. Wasting it would be staying out there. The court's a pit of snakes. But here, you're the only one who doesn't lie to me. He gestured toward the window. Lie number 1. I lowered my gaze. I try not to. He brushed a knuckle against my cheek. My entire body flinched internally, but outside I was still as marble. I needed to be. I needed to watch him, learn him, break him. His hand moved to the back of my neck, held me there, close. The warmth of him was sickening, intimate, familiar somehow, like the past bleeding into the wrong future. You're quiet today, are you still unwell? He said. Lie number 2. I think I just missed you, I whispered. A smile pulled at his mouth. Soft, possessive. And then he kissed me. I didn't move. I didn't resist. I let him take what he wanted. His lips, slow and familiar, claimed mine like territory. It wasn't violent. Not yet. It was worse than that. It was practiced. This was what Silas had endured, had learned to survive. When he finally pulled away, he rested his forehead against mine. I hate when you're sick. You make the whole palace unbearable. I'll get better quickly, I promised. He stroked my hair like I was something fragile. A bird in a cage. Good, because the ball is tonight. The nobles are already chattering about seeing you again. They need to be reminded what beauty looks like. He murmured. I swallowed. Do I have to perform? He tilted his head, curious. You like performing. Lie number 3. I do. Of course. Lucian studied me for a moment. I could feel it, the calculation behind his eyes. He wasn't stupid. He saw things others didn't. He'd sniffed out rebels from entire provinces with a glance. And yet not me. Not yet. Maybe that's why he liked Silas so much. Pretty, quiet, unthreatening. A soft shadow to whisper comfort when the Empire's weight crushed him. But I wasn't that shadow. I was the executioner. Or I would be. Later, I dressed in front of the mirror, inspecting the silk robes the servants had laid out. Crimson and gold. The Emperor's colors. His mark. Every fold of the fabric screamed owned. Kasha entered without a sound. She always moved like a ghost. Sharp-eyed. Careful. Your grace, for your nerves, she said, setting down a vial of tea. I eyed the tea. You think I'm nervous? You always drink it before court events. Her tone gave nothing away. I took the cup. Didn't drink. Kasha, do you think he loves me? I asked. She hesitated. Just enough to answer the question. I think you're important to him. What was Silas like? Before me? I asked, feigning innocence. Another pause. Her mouth twitched. Gentle. Sad. Lonely. A ghost. I was wearing a dead boy's skin. I set the tea aside untouched. That evening, Lucian held court like a god. He made nobles kneel. He made generals beg. And I stood beside him in crimson, a silent promise that the lion had teeth and silk. When I touched his arm, he melted. When I kissed his cheek, they all watched. When he whispered in my ear, I smiled like it was a gift. But every second, I was learning. Lucian hated disrespect, but craved defiance. He didn't want a slave, he wanted a believer. He wanted someone who could survive his cruelty and still say, "I love you." And Silas had done just that. But I wouldn't. I would make him fall. I would make him break. And when he finally begged me to love him, I would remember the sound of my own bones cracking on that execution block. And maybe I'd forgive him. Maybe. Chapter 3, Pet of the Empire. They called it the Petal Hour, when the court gathered in the grand garden pavilion, all dressed in flattery and poison. Perfumed nobles fluttered under cherry blossom trees and silk banners, sipping wine that cost more than entire villages. Everyone smiling, everyone pretending, and there I was, draped in cream and gold, hair threaded with pearls, seated at the emperor's right hand like a well-trained decoration. But I was watching, learning, every glance Lucien gave me, every whisper stifled when I lifted my eyes. I saw how they looked at me, not just with envy but calculation, because I wasn't just his consort. I was his favorite, his shield, his leash, and now I could use that. Lucien was in rare form tonight, leaning back on his throne-like chair, cup in hand, speaking lazily to a ring of nobles gathered at his feet like dogs. They laughed too loudly, flattered too desperately. It was pathetic. I almost felt pity. Almost. "You're quiet again. They'll think you've lost your charm," he said to me, not bothering to lower his voice. I turned to him slowly. "I'm just listening, watching." Lucien's gaze lingered on me. I let him look, let him want. His hand slid across the cushion and took mine, possessively. "You know I don't like when you withdraw, it makes me think something's broken," he said. I leaned in, brushing my lips against his ear. "Then let me entertain you, my lord." He grinned, sharp and curious. "Do." That was when I saw him. Lord Halden, son of the treasurer, young, smirking, drunk on attention and just bold enough to think he mattered. He was mocking me with his eyes. Not directly, never that brave, but I saw it. The way he raised his brow every time Lucien touched me. The way he smiled when others whispered. I stood slowly. The garden fell quiet. I walked barefoot across the silken carpet laid between tables and cushions, letting every noble see the curve of my neck, the swing of gold chains down my back, the illusion of fragility, the kind of beauty men mistake for weakness. I stopped before Lord Halden and offered him my hand. He blinked, confused. "Your Grace," I smiled. "Dance with me." "I don't dance." "Then kneel." He froze. The court held its breath. Lucien leaned forward, watching us like a cat watches a bleeding mouse. "Your Grace, You mocked me with your eyes? Did you think I wouldn't notice?" I said softly. "I meant no insult." "Then prove your loyalty. Kneel. Kiss my shoe." Halden paled. I could feel Lucien watching. He didn't interrupt. He was curious, entertained. That meant I could push. I tilted my head. "You wouldn't disobey the Emperor's favorite, would you?" And that did it. Halden dropped to his knees, red-faced, trembling. He kissed the toe of my slipper like it burned. The crowd erupted in gasps, half laughter, half horror. I turned back to Lucien. He looked at me like I'd grown wings. Later, in the shadowed corridor outside his private chamber, he pinned me against the wall and kissed me like he was starving. "You surprised me. I didn't think you had claws," he murmured between bites at my neck. I moaned lightly, the sound delicate. "Fake. I live to please you." He pulled back. "No, you don't. That's what makes you interesting." He brushed my lips again, gentler now. And for one breathless second, I forgot to hate him. Because part of me, some sick, fractured part, liked the power. The way the world bent around me when I played the role just right. But I caught my reflection in the gold mirror on the wall. My eyes, dark and hollow, and I remembered. This wasn't real. This was war. And I was still a prisoner. Just in finer chains. In the silence of the night, after he slept beside me, arm heavy around my waist, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to the dark, "You want love? Then bleed for it." Chapter 4, The Poisoned Fruit. It was harder to breathe today. Maybe it was the corset laced too tight beneath the embroidered robe, or the air itself, thick with the scent of rose oil and something sweeter, like rot pretending to be perfume. Or maybe it was memory. I couldn't stop hearing the crowd again. The crack of the platform. My own heartbeat stuttering before the blade fell. Except I hadn't died. Not really. Someone else had. And now I was wearing him. Kasia entered without knocking, but I sensed her hesitation. She always lingered in the doorway, like she wasn't sure which version of me she'd find. She placed a tray on the table. Thin slices of preserved peach. A folded note. Letters from the north, and one from the Minister of Trade. He asked again for a private audience. She said, "I'm sure he did." I didn't look up. Kasia didn't leave. That was unusual. I lifted my gaze slowly. "You haven't taken your tonic," she said. "I'm not sick." She looked at me. "No, but Silas was." I froze. My hands, still delicate and milk pale, curled against the fabric of my robe. What was it? Melancholia, claustrophobia, night terrors. Her voice was clinical, but there was a tremor behind it. "He tried to drown himself in the lake 2 winters ago." I read that. My voice was quieter than I meant it to be. Kasia hesitated again. "He was a soft boy, but not weak. He loved the Emperor. I think he thought it would save him." I looked down at the tea, then up at her. "You knew I wasn't him." Her eyes didn't waver. "I did." "Then why haven't you said anything?" "Because you're still alive, and that's more than Silas managed," she said. She left without another word. That night, Lucien summoned me. Not to his chambers. To the West Wing audience hall. That meant performance. That meant blood. The room was lit with too many candles, throwing shadows in every direction. A single courtier stood trembling before Lucien's dais. A low noble, judging by the cut of his sleeves and the dirt still clinging to his boots. He'd made the mistake of speaking out against the land taxes. Not publicly, just enough for it to echo. And now he would be used. Lucien was lounging as always. When I entered, his eyes lit up. "Ah, my little lion returns." I said nothing, just walked to his side, barefoot on the cold marble, and waited. Lucien gestured lazily at the man. He spoke against me. What should we do with him? I knew this game. He wanted me to say mercy. He wanted me to beg. So he could deny me, then hold me tighter later as if he were the one protecting me from the monster inside himself. But I wasn't Silas. I turned to the man. I walked to him, slowly, letting the room shrink around my silence. He dropped to his knees. "I didn't mean, Your Grace. I didn't, please." I knelt with him, close enough to smell the sweat and desperation on his skin. Then I whispered, "Next time, don't say it out loud." I rose, walked back to Lucien. He laughed, deep and delighted. "Brutal, sharp. I do love when you wear teeth." He didn't have the man killed. He didn't have to. That noble would spread the story himself. The Emperor's pet had chosen not to save him. The court would whisper. Silas had become dangerous. Good. Later, in the quiet of Lucien's chambers, when he pulled me into bed and wrapped an arm around my waist, I stared at the ceiling again. "I hurt someone today," I said. Lucien kissed the back of my shoulder. He deserved it. I didn't argue, but the truth sat heavy under my ribs. I wasn't just playing the part anymore. I was becoming it, and I didn't know where Elias ended and Silas began. Chapter 5. Knife between lovers. There was a knife under my pillow. I put it there, thin, curved, sharp enough to open flesh without effort. But as I stood over Lucien's sleeping form, blade gripped in my hand, I couldn't move. He looked human when he slept. Not like the Emperor, not like the tyrant. Just a man. One hand curled near his face, hair a little damp at the temple, lips slightly parted like he'd fallen into dreams without defenses. He looked like someone who could be forgiven, and that made it worse. My hand trembled. I should have plunged it into his throat and been done with it. But instead, he stirred. I froze. The knife slipped slightly in my grip. Just a shift in weight enough. His eyes opened. Not groggily. Not confused. Immediately alert. He stared up at me, at the blade in my hand, at the look on my face. And then he whispered, not afraid. Do it. Silence stretched between us like wire. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. His voice was quieter this time, almost sad. Do it, Elias, or stop pretending you will. That name, Elias, landed like fire in my chest. My knees almost gave out. You knew, I choked. I've always known. Silas never looked at me like he wanted to carve my heart out. I dropped the blade, not out of mercy, out of rage, out of betrayal, out of fear. He sat up, slowly, and I stepped back like he was radioactive, like he was something I had summoned and no longer knew how to control. Why didn't you say anything? Why play along? I demanded. His eyes flickered. Because I missed you. You never knew me. I knew your voice when you were screaming in that cell. I remembered it. I couldn't forget it. He said quietly. I felt sick. He rose from the bed. I backed away again, until my spine met the wall. You let me get close, even when you hated me, he said. I still do. Then why didn't you kill me? My voice cracked. Because I wanted you to feel it first. What it's like to beg. A long silence. Then, softly, do you think I haven't? He walked past me and opened the doors to the bathing chamber. Come here. I'm not in the mood to. Shut up. Just come. I don't know why I followed him. Maybe I was too tired to argue. Maybe I wanted to see if he was about to punish me. Maybe some part of me needed to know what he looked like when he didn't hide behind the crown. The water was already steaming, perfumed lightly with bergamot and cedar. Lucien sank into it with a quiet groan, then looked up at me. Get in. I didn't move. Elias, he said, not as a command, just my name. Tired. Hollow. I peeled off the robe and stepped in. The water was scalding. It burned the tension out of me, or maybe it just replaced it. We sat in silence for a long time, facing opposite directions. Then, without looking at me, he said, I gave the order. I know that. I don't regret protecting my throne. But I regret that it was you. I laughed under my breath. You think saying that makes anything better? No, but I needed to say it anyway, he murmured. The anger wouldn't go away, but it began to lose shape, became something more like grief. Grief for the man I was, the man I'd pretended to be, the boy who thought vengeance would feel like justice. Lucien reached for my hand under the water. I didn't pull away. I hated him. I hated myself more for needing this, for needing something. That night, after he fell asleep again, I didn't reach for the knife. I just lay beside him, eyes open, listening to his heartbeat, wondering what scared me more, that I couldn't kill him, or that I didn't want to. Chapter 6. The General's Eye. General Talon was the kind of man who always stood still, not like a statue. Statues existed to be admired. Talon existed to be feared. He didn't pace. He didn't fidget. He just stood and waited and watched like time answered to him. He had been Lucien's general since before the war ended. Before the revolution I died in. Before I ever opened my mouth in protest or kissed a gunpowder manifesto with my name on it. He was loyal. Loyal enough to kill me once. Lucien had summoned him to discuss border unrest. That was the official excuse. I sat beside the emperor during the council meeting, pouring his tea, whispering reminders of who owed him favors and who was stalling. I could feel Talon's gaze on me the entire time. Never once did he look away, not even when Lucien dismissed the room. You can stay, Lucien said to me, brushing his fingers lightly across my wrist, a gesture too tender. Talon noticed. Of course he did. After the meeting, I wandered the palace garden alone. Or so I thought. The scent of frost was still in the hedges. My robe dragged across dew-slick stone as I walked, fingers trailing the rim of a fountain Silas had once bathed in on a dare. Nobles still whispered about that summer. I was about to leave when I heard the footsteps. Measured, heavy, deliberate. I turned slowly. Talon stood beneath the archway, hands behind his back, face unreadable. The kind of man who wore control like armor. I smiled, careful and soft. General, were you admiring the garden? Or following me? Both, he said. No hesitation. No charm. Just truth. I tilted my head. What do you want? To talk. Talk, then. He walked forward. Slowly, like a lion that knew you'd run eventually, and stopped 2 paces from me. I've seen many lies in this court, but you wear yours like silk, he said. I kept my face serene. That's a compliment, I think. I don't like you. That's mutual. He studied me with eyes like cut obsidian. You're not Silas. My throat went tight. Not from fear. From fury. Still, I said calmly, is that supposed to scare me? It's supposed to warn you. Talon stepped closer. You're not fooling Lucien. Not really. He wants to believe you're something else. Someone he can forgive himself through. But I don't believe in ghosts. And I don't believe in redemption. Then why are you still here? I asked, voice low. Because I serve the Empire. Not him. That struck something sharp inside me. A bitter truth. Talon leaned in just slightly. If you break him, I'll bury you before you can blink. No matter whose face you wear. I smiled cold. Funny. That's exactly what I planned to do to him. His jaw tightened. You think you're clever, but I've seen what happens to people who try to control monsters. They get eaten, he said. I stepped close enough that our breath met in the cold. You're right, but some of us were born to be venom, not prey. We stared at each other. Neither of us blinked. Then he turned and walked away without another word. That night, I told Lucien I wanted him to dismiss the guards from outside our chamber doors. He gave me a curious look. Why? I feel safer without eyes watching me. He didn't hesitate, just nodded. As you wish. When we lay down, he touched my face like I was something breakable, and I let him. But inside, my thoughts were crawling. Talon had seen through me, but I wasn't afraid, because for the first time since I woke up in this cursed body, I understood something. Lucien might have been the tyrant who killed me, but Talon? Talon was the sword he'd used to do it. And if I was going to survive this game, I had to choose which blade I wanted at my throat. Chapter 7, Fire in the Veins. Came wrapped in white linen and folded 3 times over. Hidden beneath a tray of fruit. Delivered not by a servant but by Kasha herself. She didn't say anything as she placed it on the marble table near the window. She didn't even meet my eyes. Just turned and walked out without a word. Her silence heavier than any warning. I waited until the guards rotated shift. Then I unfolded the cloth. A note, scrawled in code I hadn't seen in 2 lifetimes. Feast of the Moon. He'll raise his glass. Yours will be laced. Do what he did to you. End it. Tucked inside the linen was a vial the color of old bruises. Tincture of white oleander. Clean. Painless. Final. I sat there for a long time, watching the snow melt on the stone railing, 1 drop at a time. It would be easy, almost poetic. Lucien, in his finest robe, surrounded by sycophants, raising a toast to his empire while his favorite smiles at him with a secret between his teeth. I could do it. I should do it. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, he entered our chamber half-drunk, still wearing the ceremonial silver pinned to his shoulder. He looked beautiful in the way falling buildings look beautiful right before they crush you. You missed the first course, he said, pulling off his gloves. I wasn't hungry. He gave me a look that said he knew I was lying, but didn't press. He rarely did anymore. I poured the wine, uncorked the bottle, measured the drop into his cup when his back was turned. He took it without suspicion, held it up. To peace. I watched him raise it to his lips. My heart beat once, twice, and then I slapped it out of his hand. The goblet shattered. Red stained the ivory rug. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. I don't want peace like this, I said. His expression darkened. What did you do? I almost let you die, and part of me wanted to watch. I snapped. He stepped forward, slow, cautious, like I was something cornered. You poisoned my cup. You murdered me. He didn't flinch. Then why save me now? He asked. Because I wanted it to matter, I wanted you to know. I wanted you to feel it. I said, voice cracking. And do you think I haven't? He reached for me. I slapped his hand away. I wanted to see you crumble. I wanted you to beg, I said. He stared at me, and then slowly he sank to his knees. I froze. Is this what you want? Will this satisfy you? He asked. Stop. Make me. Punish me. Kill me. But don't pretend you don't want me to suffer. His voice was a whisper. I stepped back. Get up, I said. No. If you're going to destroy me, do it while I'm still yours. He stayed on the floor. I'm not yours, I whispered. But I'm still yours, he said, eyes never leaving mine. I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of him anymore. Because I was afraid of myself. Afraid of what it meant that I hadn't let him die. Afraid of how close I'd come to kissing him when he was on his knees. Kasia found me the next morning, still dressed, staring at the broken goblet on the floor. I couldn't do it, I said. I know, she said softly. I'm losing myself. She touched my shoulder. No, you're finally remembering who you were, she said. And for the first time in weeks I cried. Not for Lucian, not even for Silas, but for Elias, the boy who died screaming, and the man who lived anyway. Chapter 10, Breaking the Crown. He called the council to session at dawn. No warning, no ceremony, just the ringing of the east wing bells and the unmistakable silence that followed. The kind of silence that says something has ended before anyone knows what. I stood behind him as he entered the throne room. Not beside, not above, behind, because I needed to see what he chose when I wasn't touching him, when I wasn't whispering lies or pressing my mouth to his. I needed to know who he was when the blood wasn't warm on his hands. The room was packed. Ministers, generals, nobles from every corner of the empire. Talon stood at his right flank like a blade sheathed in duty. Kasia waited in the shadows near the marble arch, her expression unreadable. Lucian climbed the steps to the throne, then stopped. He didn't sit. He turned to face them. Face us. Voice calm. Today I return what was never mine to keep. Confusion rippled like wind through wheat. Murmurs. Shifting feet. A few wide eyes. A few smirks. The kind power-hungry men wear when they think they're watching a king fall apart. Lucian held up his hand. Quiet. I built this empire from war. I've ruled it through force, through fear, and through lies. He said. The word felt foreign coming from his mouth. Lies. He never used to admit them. He used to hide behind strategy, security, order. Now he let the blade fall bare. I told myself I was protecting it, but I was only protecting myself. He continued. My breath caught, because I could hear it in his voice, the ache under the steel, the tremble just beneath the control. I've killed for this throne. I've bled for it. I've made others bleed more. But I no longer believe in the crown's absolution. I no longer believe in my right to rule, he said. Talon stepped forward, half a breath from protest. Lucian didn't even look at him. I am dissolving the structure of sole rule. As of today, the empire will be governed by council. 10 seats, 1 vote each. I will retain one. A storm of reaction broke loose. Screaming, shouting, questions thrown like knives. Lucian let it come. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't run. He waited. And when the noise died down, he spoke again. I will not wear the crown again. The coronet rested on the velvet cushion to his left. I hadn't noticed it before, but now it gleamed gold, still warm from its last use. Lucian stepped down. I thought he might hand it to Talon. He didn't. He turned, walked down the aisle, and placed the crown into my hands. Silence spread like wildfire. I didn't speak, didn't breathe, just stared at the gold between my fingers. The same gold he wore when he ordered my death. Now he gave it to me like it was nothing, or maybe like it was everything he no longer wanted to be. That night the palace was quiet, too quiet. No music, no bells, no celebrations, just the sound of change creaking through the bones of a dying world. Lucian found me in the solarium, barefoot, crownless, wearing only a simple shirt and the silence we hadn't yet broken. He sat across from me on the stone bench. No words. Not at first. Then, "Do you think less of me now?" I looked at him. Really looked. At the man, not the emperor. "No, but you terrify me more," I said. "Why?" "Because I can't predict you anymore." Lucien smiled faintly. "Good." I hesitated. Then asked the question that had been burning in my throat for hours. "Did you do it for me?" He didn't lie. "Yes." I looked down. At my hands. At the hands that had once curled around a blade meant for his throat. "And what do I do with that?" He reached over. Took my hand. Kissed my knuckles like they were holy. "You live." Chapter 11. The Garden of Ghosts. The cemetery lay just beyond the northern orchard. Hidden, quiet, carved into a hill the color of ash and memory. They called it the Whispering Grove. A place for honored dead. Though most of the honored hadn't died in ways that deserved it. Soldiers, courtiers, spies who'd failed quietly, lovers who'd been loved too much. Silas had a marker here. So did I. Not my body, that had been discarded in the pit with the others. But someone had carved a stone. Elias Thorne. Executed by royal decree. Traitor. Rebel. Never forgotten. They hadn't even gotten my age right. Lucien stood beside me. Silent. Unarmed. He hadn't spoken since we arrived. I didn't look at him. I was too busy staring at the name on the stone. At the irony of being remembered for what I was proud of, but buried by the man I now slept beside. I crouched, ran my fingers over the letters. The groove of my own name. It didn't feel like me. It felt like someone I used to know. "I thought I wanted you dead forever," I said quietly. Lucien didn't answer. Every night in the palace, I told myself I was playing a role. That when the time came, I'd finish it. Poison your wine. Smother you in your sleep. Leave your corpse on that throne. I touched the ground. But something kept breaking. Every time I hated you, you bled. Silence. I looked over my shoulder. Lucien was staring at the other grave. Silas's. His eyes were unreadable. I rose slowly. Walked to his side. The stone was smaller. No last name. Just Silas. Beloved. Lost. Forgiven. "You had this written," I said. He nodded. I didn't know what else to give him. I'd already taken everything. He said. My chest hurt. Not from anger. From how quiet his voice was when he said it. "I used to hate him for being weak. For letting you hold him in a cage." I whispered. "He loved me," Lucien said. "He thought it would save him." Lucien looked at me. "Did it?" I met his eyes. "No." He nodded. Then, after a long pause, "Do you still hate me?" I didn't answer right away, because I needed to be honest. For once. I think a part of me always will, but it's not the part that decides what I do next. I said. He breathed in like it was the first real breath he'd taken all day. "And what will you do next?" I stared at both graves. Then at the palace beyond the trees. Then at him. "I'll live," I said. He smiled. Not like an emperor. Like a man who had no idea how lucky he was. That night, we returned to the palace in silence. No hand-holding. No declarations. Just footsteps in sync. We passed the throne room. Neither of us looked inside. I didn't say goodbye to the ghosts in the grove, because I wasn't ready. But I did something I hadn't done in years. I let myself sleep, and I didn't dream of fire. Chapter 12. A Love That Bleeds. The palace was quieter now. No screams. No gilded lies. No parades of noble mouths kissing power. Just the hush of snow melting off the rooftops and the occasional soft rustle of robes against stone. The air smelled clean for once. Like dust after rain. Like beginnings. Lucien didn't sleep in the Emperor's chamber anymore. He hadn't since he gave up the crown. He slept in the West Wing. No guards. No locked doors. No portraits of dead kings staring down like gods. Tonight, I stood outside it, holding nothing but a half-finished letter in my hand. I didn't know if I'd give it to him. I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew was I didn't want to walk away. Not again. I knocked once. lightly. His voice came from within, quiet but awake. "Come in." I opened the door. He was sitting by the fireplace, cross-legged, reading. No robe, no crown, just a soft gray tunic and ink stains on his fingers. He looked up when I entered, and I saw the breath catch in his throat. Not desire, recognition. Of me, not Silas, not a weapon. Me. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. He didn't speak. He waited. I held up the folded paper. I tried to write it, but it didn't work. He didn't ask what it was. I let the page drop onto the table between us. I thought it would be easier to say on paper, because when I look at you, I forget how to be simple. Lucian nodded like he understood. Then don't be simple. I walked toward him, stopped just out of reach. "I hated you," I said. "I know. I planned your death 100 different ways. I deserved every one." I took a breath, steady, careful, then stepped forward and knelt beside his chair. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't move, didn't touch me. I told myself love was weakness, that to want you meant losing myself, I said. His throat worked as he swallowed. "And now, I still don't know what this is, but it's not weakness," I whispered. His voice shook. "Then what is it?" I looked at him, at the man who had killed me, at the man who had knelt for forgiveness, at the man who stayed when I screamed, who bled when I pushed, who broke the world he built to keep me from leaving. "It's mine," I said. He closed his eyes, and for the first time he looked free. We didn't kiss right away. There was no rush, no desperation, just warmth, the kind that builds slow, the kind that roots itself deep. He took my hand and pulled me gently into his lap, arms around my waist, forehead against mine. His skin was warm, his breath soft, and when I closed my eyes, I didn't see fire or blades or the gallows. I just saw him, not the tyrant, not the ghost, just Lucian, mine. Later, as we lay in bed beneath quiet sheets, I whispered to the dark, "You'll always be a little broken." His fingers brushed my collarbone. "So will you, and we'll keep hurting each other," I said. "Yes," he agreed, "but we'll stop running." I turned toward him, pressed my forehead to his, and for the first time I meant it when I said, "I forgive you," not because he deserved it, not because I forgot, but because I was ready to live, and because somewhere between my death and his surrender, we built something that bled and still survived, something like love.